So now we're going to move forward this evening with our presentation by, I think it's Sean Sweeney, since I don't have my glasses on. And he's going to talk to you this evening about the iPad. So thank you, Sean.
Sure, thanks. Hi. Nice to see you. My name's Sean, and I am a speech and language pathologist by training. For those of you who've had any discussions or work with speech and language pathologists, you might be surprised to find that a few of us are actually male. We're like unicorns. And I'm also an instructional technology specialist. So I grew up in Boston, born and bred, and I still live in Dorchester. And my dad was a technology specialist for Situate Public Schools. So being from Boston, it's especially meaningful to get to talk to you folks tonight. So what the purpose of what I'm going to talk about is just presenting a broad view of what you can accomplish with the iPad with and for your kids while engaging kids. As a speech and language pathologist in the public schools, I worked in Newton for the bulk of my career so far. And I just really had a view of technology as being a tool that I could utilize. My dad had always brought home the latest Apple IIe or Apple IIgs so that he could learn how to use it in education, and so I learned it along the way and always just thought it was a great resource for motivating kids and providing kids with visuals and as a way to elicit language, because as a speech and language pathologist, that was my main interest in helping kids communicate. The iPad, when it first came out, I had been writing a little bit and blogging. So blogs seem sort of a throwaway resource, but they can really sort of change your life and connect you to people and ideas. As Kristen Mackey could tell you, she blogs about her own experiences as a parent. Blogs can really connect you with a lot of ideas. So part of what I'll talk to you tonight about are some of the blogs that share ideas about apps. I started one of those about 4 years ago, just sort of on a whim. And the next thing that I knew, I was being asked to fly to Saskatchewan and talk about apps. So it really was a way to convey ideas about technology. When the iPad first came out, I was already blogging, and I didn't think much of it, to be honest with you. I sort of saw it as a big iPhone, didn't know exactly where it would go. And it really has proven me wrong and lots of folks wrong in leveling the playing field for both kids, adults, teachers. The iPad does have a learning curve, like every piece of technology, but it's been much easier than a lot of the technology that has come before it to employ it. And I also say leveling the playing field in that the iPad, as you can see mine here, you actually can barely see it because it's just sitting on the table. It really can provide a context to communicate around without getting in the way as a giant screen that can sort of block people from talking to each other. So I think that's one of the reasons that it's piqued people's interest. And I think it's going to continue to be a good resource for years to come. So you do have a handout. And I'll give you a couple of caveats about the handout. I've done this talk for parent groups in the area in different versions, in sort of an hour version, an hour and a half version, a 2-hour version. Your handout is kind of the 2-hour version, though where I only have about an hour to talk to you. But I always figure, why not provide you with the information? And if you ever have any questions, you could always email me and say, what was that app about? Or if you know that an app goes in a particular category, it's something that you could explore on your own. But the title of tonight's presentation is the iPad, a tool, not just a toy, because I really want to just look at different kinds of apps and different ways that they could be used to further learning, all kinds of different skill learning. Okay? So I'm going to start by talking about, and if you'll forgive me, I'm going to just put the mic down because I'm going to be using my hands a lot, so I'll just shout because I can't use an iPad and have a handheld mic, so I'll just do this. And if you can't hear me, let me know, but that's probably pretty good, right, in an auditorium? Okay. So I'm going to start by talking with you about language and play. And I'm going to kind of, swoop across a bunch of age levels, because I bet a lot of you have young kids, a lot of you have middle of the road age kids, and some of you probably have older kids, and just talk about how the iPad can be employed across the grade level. How many families have an iPad at home who are here? Okay, great. Okay, good start. And to let you know what I'm going to be talking about tonight and what's been the thrust of the blog that I write, it's called SpeechTechie, by the way. You can get to it at SpeechTechie.com. It's a labor of love, like all blogs. I don't get any money if you go there. I don't even have any ads or anything like that, because the first time I tried to put an ad on there through like Google AdSense, up popped an ad that said Donald Trump for president, and I was immediately scared and I turned off all ads. So I just wasn't going to go there. So it's a labor of love. But the purpose of the blog is free and low cost apps that can be looked at through a broader lens, so to speak, to see how they could be used as a learning tool. So that's what we're going to really be talking about today. As a speech and language therapist, there are a great amount of apps that do cost because they're tools for speech and language development, articulation therapy, that are great to look at. And I'll talk to you about ways that you can find out what's out there in that realm too. But I really love the apps that can be sort of repurposed and thought of in different ways. So I'm going to talk about some apps that you could consider digital toys first. So thinking about apps for younger students, apps that help build the sense of play schema and what are the steps for play, how to understand lots of different contexts for playing, and what are some scripts that you can follow for play. And one of the things that I found that's really terrific about app development are, oops, and I should turn this on so that it comes on. Are the apps that don't automatically draw kids and parents or whoever is around right into the screen and only the screen. So I think that if we can have apps that present a context and draw everyone sort of towards each other, those are a great kind of app that have been developed in the past few years. One of the studios that's really focused on that is called Toka. Has anyone here ever used Toka apps? Okay, so Toka is a studio out of Sweden, actually, and the folks at Toka have really focused on all different kinds of play and how they could be fostered through technology as sort of digital toys. A great example of this, their apps, they do have free versions of a lot of their apps, so you can check out some of the free Toka apps. And the ones that cost are only like $1.99 or $2.99. A really good example of this is Toka Store. So Toka Store is an open-ended sort of store simulation. Kristen, will you come and play store with me? Sure. Okay. Because this really can show, and I won't get in the way. When you start playing store, part of the first things that you have to do, or one of the first things you have to do, is sort of decide who's going to play what role. And you can see here that the app, because we're going to interact with it here, or it sort of makes the iPad part of a table so that you can interact with each other. So, Kristen, would you rather be the store owner or the shopper?
I like to shop.
You like to shop? Okay. So that means I'm the owner, okay? And you can see right here that the store is closed for you, so you can't come in yet. Okay, so as the owner, I can decide what kind of store I want to have. The catalog here could be roughly categorical. So if I wanted to have, say, a fruit store, I could pick bananas. Okay, I could pick apples. I could pick, what else is fruit here? Ketchup? Ketchup is sort of fruit. There's strawberry jam. I consider ketchup a vegetable. Okay? And where was the ketchup? Ketchup, and there was orange juice there too. Welcome, customer. So you really can use a lot of sort of, that's the stage that we're in, and then use language to sort of play. So, welcome. What would you like to buy today?
Ketchup.
You'd like to buy some ketchup? Okay, so your job then is you can drag the ketchup up to the green mat next to the cash register.
Thank you.
Okay. The ketchup costs $3. You can use your purse there and pay me by dragging the money into the drawer. Okay, I'll ring that up for you. I bet you want ketchup because you love French fries. Is that right? Okay. So modeling that kind of language with kids, if a child were to use this app by themselves or two children that didn't have a lot of language, they wouldn't get the language from the app, but they can get a lot of language from modeling around the app. Okay, what else? Oh, now you can put it in your bag. Since you paid for it, you put it in your bag, you tap your bag first. And there it goes in your bag. Okay, what else would you like to buy?
Bananas, I love bananas.
Okay. Okay, notice that Kristen also knows her role. Her role is not to touch the cash register. So really promoting that kind of understanding of role and sharperness really helps kids, you know, fulfill those social roles of play. The bananas are from Paraguay, so they're $5.
Not enough?
That is not enough. I still need more. Okay, and I'll ring that up for you, and you can put it in your bag. Okay, and let's buy one more thing.
Orange juice, please.
Orange juice. Okay, that's a special kind of orange juice, so it's also $5. Okay, so does anyone notice a problem? Okay, so why don't you go ahead and start paying, because the app plays a little trick. Now, it's important to emphasize to kids that this doesn't happen in real life. Okay, but in this game, that's what happens. Okay, and you get to take that orange juice home, even though some magic was involved. And then you get a receipt. Okay, so that's the way store works. Okay, and the store itself becomes like a play set that's like part of your table. They have similar apps. They have one called Toka Tea Party, where it's actually a table. And you can set sort of a stuffed animal here, or just 3 different kids who can interact around the app. So that's a really special kind of way to think about the way technology can just provide a context for us to think about each other and use language. There's a little video clip I always like to show along with Toka Boca apps because it was a really sort of special happening. Hang on one second. Every year, Apple Computer has a fairly large conference that takes place in California, and it's to promote development of apps. So people who develop apps other than Apple come to this conference. It's called Worldwide Developers Conference. And they usually don't talk about special education, and they don't talk about speech and language pathology. But this particular year, 2 years ago, they made a very congratulatory video for all of these folks working in app development, and they actually featured a speech and language pathologist in the video. So this was really amazing to me. I have to just move it, I apologize. I set it to where it was supposed to be, and then it decided not to be there anymore. Because that's what technology does, right?
And it immediately opens up this world of possibility.
Mackenzie's speech is somewhat difficult to understand. Her palate doesn't work the way that it should. In the world of speech-language pathology, the iPad is a tool that's definitely been embraced. We use the Toka apps to facilitate her describing skills.
Was that yellow? Good job.
I think the coolest thing about those apps are that they're so engaging and so fun. Kids don't realize that they're actually working on particular skills. They become a real toy for her, a tool for me, but a toy for her.
It's really fantastic to see.
So I stole that language from Renina. She's actually a friend of mine, and she is not only a speech and language pathologist, but she's a parent of a child with some communication needs, and she really encapsulated that well in saying that, you know, the app can be a toy for a child, but a tool for us to further communication in our interaction around the app with kids. So that's a really good example there. Another studio to look at, or you know, group of folks that are making apps, is a group that's called Dr. Panda. Okay, so Dr. Panda makes apps that let kids play with different settings in the real world, setting meaning a place, okay? So a lot of the kids that I work with can tend to lack that sort of world knowledge, background knowledge of understanding the way things work. And so I love apps and books, by the way, that sort of expose them to different places so that we can talk more about the way the world works. The step-by-step way the world works, the cause and effect of the way the world works. All of that is important for our kids. So the Dr. Panda apps, which have some free versions, by the way, so you can get the free version that only has like 1 or 2 games within the app, and then you can get full versions as well. So for example, Dr. Panda's Airport brings kids to the airport where they can go through the steps of checking baggage, navigating through lines in much more fun ways than we do in real life. So bringing us over here to the line situation is little mazes that really show that, oh, he needs to navigate through the ropes to get to his bag. And the way you do this is you just draw the line to get over to the bag. Luckily, I could do the maze on one try. They're all pretty simple and forgiving little mini games. But the supermarket, for example, has carts that you have to collect in the parking lot. It has a recycle section where you sort things together. And notice that like Toka Store, the apps are what we would call language neutral. There's no words in this app. So it really gives you a good opportunity, or a sibling a good opportunity, to talk with the child about, oh, what are we going to do next? Why is that happening? Let's describe this place. Much like you would a picture book. I really liken a lot of apps to picture books because you can do a lot of talking, you know, around them. Okay, sometimes that takes some controlling of, oops, I'm going to hold it now while we talk. You can still see it, but you're not going to touch it for a minute. It takes that sort of, you know, structure. But apps for play can be used in that way. So the Dr. Panda apps too, by the way, if you do have an Android device, all of those apps are available for Android as well. And if you want to check out, here's an early tip for you, because I'll give you some more tips on finding out more stuff later, or how to find out more about apps. If you ever want to look at an app before you buy it, you might have noticed that the App Store doesn't tell you that much about apps. You get a few screens, you get some description of what it does. YouTube is your friend. Okay, so if you go to YouTube and look up videos on just about any app ever produced, you can watch a short video tutorial on how the app is used. That's available for almost any app that you might be interested in, and it gives you a lot more information than just, you know, looking at the screen on the App Store. So those are a few apps where kids can kind of consume information, and through a dialogue with you or a teacher, I highly recommend these apps being used in playing with kids at younger younger ages, even in speech and language intervention. They can sort of consume information through an interaction. But one of the terrific developments with the iPad has been that it's also a creative tool. When it first came out, kind of like the internet. If we think back, who here remembers when the internet came out? It was sort of like, oh, there's this thing now I should be aware of. Yeah? All right. And all you could do at that time was read the pages. It wasn't really all that exciting. Okay? There were pages to read. So the internet could be consumed. But as the internet developed, you could create stuff with the internet. Really fascinating Facebook statuses about the meal you're eating or things like that. All that's your creative process. But the iPad sort of developed in the same way, that at first it was very much marketed as you can read web pages, you can read books, you can listen to music, you can watch movies, consumption. But then as it developed, especially with the addition of a camera to the iPad 2, it became a creative tool as well. One of my favorite examples of this is an app that's called Tunetastic. So if you want to ask later, I know Kristen had some really good experiences with her boys using Tunetastic. Tunetastic was developed by some guys out in California who they're very interested in technology, but they were really well grounded in education. They understood what was going on in classrooms as well. And they observed that when kids were in preschool and kindergarten, they had tons of time to play, okay? And time on the playground, this is something that's often talked about, is that the time to play has faded out of school. And that when kids got to first grade, that time to play and the classroom and how it's structured and whether play is supported in the classroom really sort of faded a lot. And suddenly the kids were expected to write stories. And there wasn't really a bridge between that, so they wanted to make an app that provided that kind of what's called scaffolding, that could help kids kind of play with characters and settings and tell a story through the app. So Tunetastic is what they produced. So Tunetastic is actually a free app. You can get the base app for free. It's well worth it. If you have an iTunes card lying around or whatever. The full app costs $20 and it has like so many different characters and backgrounds and extra features and things like that. So let me just make sure. Oh no, I don't have the background music on. So you can see actually, I didn't notice this, I think that's a new parent-teacher guide. A lot of apps have these parent-teacher guides built in. The Toka apps actually have a parent section so that they can tell you, give you suggestions on how to use the app with your kids. The Dr. Panda apps do too. So apps that provide that kind of guidance for you on how the app could be used for learning are really terrific. What you do with Tunetastic is, it's very easy to navigate. When you go create cartoons, any cartoons that you've already created are available here. I'll show you one that I made about escaping alligators.
Ah, cool alligators. I want to get closer. I'm going to stand on top of the fence. Oh no, I fell in.
Don't worry, it doesn't get eaten.
Help, help. Here you go. Oh, thank goodness.
I'm a terrible actor, but see, that might seem like it would take a lot to create, or animation seems daunting, but it doesn't really take anything to make this, because the iPad's a multi-function device, right? It's got a camera in it, it's got a touch screen so you can move things around, it's got a microphone, it's got speakers, and it's got the programming capability to integrate all that together and make a little movie. Okay, without you having to do much. Let me show you quickly how we would do it.
Let's read a cartoon. A cartoon is an animated story.
So you can hear the guide, which explains a lot about storytelling. I love this because it has what we call a story grammar that helps kids understand how to organize a story. Now, basically, these are scenes. You can make one scene. Like there, I think that had 2 scenes in it. the scene of falling in and then the scene of a ladder, okay? You don't have to make an epic story. You could just make one scene. You just tap the paintbrush.
The first step in building your
To
scene
start.
is to create the setting where your scene will take place.
And so what you get for free with Tunetastic is the ability to draw your own background and a few backgrounds. They have like a castle and a pirate ship background for free. Okay, and then if you pay for the other features, they have, you know, so many other ones, and also the ability to add a photo as the background. So you can take a picture of like your backyard and make a story about your backyard. So making things personally relevant for kids is really very helpful. So I'll do a snow day one.
Cool. Now tap.
And I'm
Which
just going to
characters
tap
would
to
you like
add
to see in
some characters here. I'll do some winter ones.
Great. Now you can add more characters or move on by tapping the forward arrow.
So I'm actually going to draw just I'm going to draw a snowball, so I want it to be black and definitely not yellow. Okay. So I added that as well. So see how quickly I was able to do that.
Now it's time to animate your scene. Touch the Start Animation button when you're ready, and you can move your characters on screen. Remember to speak up so the microphone can record your story.
Okay, so I have two characters here and a snowball. So I can make this character big by just pinching out. You can actually, even if you would like, there's a feature that if you add it, you can actually add the child's face to the character so that they are in the movie itself. And it's quite easy to use, but it takes a minute, so I won't do it. Okay, so I just am going to tap start and start recording, and I'll do two little voices.
Tell your story. 3, 2, 1, action.
Woohoo! Such a great day for skating. Uh-oh, there's Billy, and he has a snowball. Ha 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 ha. I don't know why I made such a mean story. Uh-oh, there's Billy, and he has a snowball. Ha 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 ha. Okay, it was a very rude story. But then as you continue,
Or you can give your scene a little more emotional energy.
you can add music as the background. So you can talk with kids about feelings, because the music is meant to align with moods. And then you can save your video either to the app itself, it'll just stay there, okay? And you can continue working on videos. That's a nice thing, that things automatically save on the iPad pretty much, and you can always go back to them and edit them. And Tunetastic also has their own little website. It's called TuneTube, and you could send your video to TuneTube, but you don't have to, okay? So that's A, optional, and B, you should know that TuneTube is very controlled and moderated. It's not like YouTube. If you've ever looked at YouTube and seen the horrible things that people write as comments under videos, there's none of that. You can only like a video on TuneTube. That's all you can do. So it's only positive energy. But that's just another app to kind of let you know about that the iPad can be used for creation and real, language building in a process like that. So that's about language and play. I do always like to point out to people too that the iPad's a good resource for building literacy through books that are available. So the books that are available for iPad are generally interactive books. There's a terrific free series. Did you need me? Oh, thanks. Nice. There's a terrific free series from HarperCollins. It's called Collins' Big Cat. If you've got kids from like preschool to K or 2, this is a great series to download, and they're all free, called Collins' Big Cat. But they're just a good example of an interactive book. Interactive books are ones that tell a story, maybe even just a real simple story like these do, but also have some interactive elements. So this is the at the dump story. So if I tap listen. Sorry.
We went to the dump with Dad.
Okay. Kind of an odd title, topic for a story too, but it is fun. And as you tap on the screen, just different elements move around. Okay.
We took paper, wood, glass, cardboard, and rings.
And so that it has actual elements around here that you're supposed to drag with the different elements that they already did. So it has like a sorting aspect to it. This particular app or series of apps lets you create your own stories too. So all of the backgrounds and characters that are in the app could be used to create your own story. So if I tap that, it makes that the background. And if I go to characters, I can drag in different characters and show them doing different things. And you can add text, and you can also record your story. So just another good avenue to know about is interactive books. At the back of your handout, I mentioned a resource that's called Moms with Apps, and also Smart Apps for Kids. It's in the very last line of your handout. Both of those resources, Moms with Apps and Smart Apps for Kids, run special posts on Fridays, so tomorrow's Friday, and they feature apps that are on sale just for the day. So they're good to check out on Fridays because often they have interactive books that are for sale or free for that day.
And Sean, if you like them on Facebook, you'll find out about them on Fridays.
Great point.
Easy way.
So Smart Apps for Kids has a great Facebook page. So if you like Smart Apps for Kids on Facebook, they're often posting about, their free and reduced apps, and they're really good reviewers of apps and really looking from an educational lens at what apps are good for kids, Smart Apps for Kids. So keep that in mind. Another app to keep in mind about sales, we all like bargains, right? There's an app called Apps Gone Free. Does anyone use Apps Gone Free? Okay, so it's an app and it's free. And it tells you about apps that have gone free for the day. Okay, or sometimes they're free for a range of days. So if you install Apps Gone Free and you check it, you could even make it, give you a notification like, remember to check me. You can find out what apps are free for the day. Okay? So in the apps that we've talked about so far, one of the sort of models that I write about and I go and train teachers and speech and language pathologists about this way of thinking about apps is how to look at this, all of those apps that you might be looking at. So if you look at Apps Gone Free, you're going to see some apps you might like, some apps you might not think have that much value. And to put that into words, I like to say that the apps that are going to have value for kids are those that meet what I made up as called the FIVES criteria. Okay? FIVES stands for fairly priced, interactive, visual, educationally relevant, and the S is for speechy, meaning it will get them to talk, okay, or get them to use language in some way. If you want to know more about that criteria, there's a free section on my blog, like everything is free up there, where you can read about that. But you can always kind of think about that to yourself. Fairly priced. It used to be free. The F was free, and I don't think it's a good message to say that everything should be free. So I changed that. Interactive, meaning you can create something, you can tap and drag, make things happen. Visual, our kids need visual supports. They give them, give you and them a context to talk about. Educationally relevant, maybe it aligns with something that's going on in their classroom. They're learning about states, maybe an interactive book about the states would be great. And speechy, meaning it gets them to talk. Okay? So a couple of ways that you can sort of change the iPad so that you can have control over what's going on. I like to point this out to you too. There's a feature that's called guided access that lets you lock a child into an app and not be able to go into any other apps. How many people would like to know about that feature? Okay, so this is just built into the operating system, and many people do find it useful. If you want, I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, but again, YouTube is your friend. So if you want to see how this is done, go to YouTube and look up guided access. The name of this is here under management on your handout, okay? Guided access. So you go into general accessibility, and there's an area here under learning that's called guided access. You can turn it on, and you can set a passcode. Remember to remember your passcode, okay? And don't tell it to your kid, because that's part of the point. All right? And what you can do then, if you want your child just to play with one app for a little while and not go into your Facebook or not do anything else, whatever, okay, is let's say I want to go into the At the Dump app. I turn on guided access by triple tapping the home button. Okay, so the home button is the button on the surface of the iPad. If you go really quickly, tap 1, 2, 3, you get this guided access menu. Okay, and not only can you prevent them from leaving the app, I could circle an area on the app. Like if I didn't want them to say make a recording, I could circle that area and disable it. But I'm just going to keep this simple and just say start. Okay, so now the child's in guided access. If I tap the home button, nothing happens. Okay, they can't leave the app. Can anyone guess how you exit guided access? The same way you entered it, okay? You just triple tap the home button and put in your passcode and you tap end, okay? And it's back to normal. That's good to know as an educator. It's good to know as a parent if you want to give your child your phone to play with in the car, but want to make sure they don't make a call or whatever. Those are good to know about. And it's also important to know about the restrictions area. Under general also here is an area that's called restrictions. Many people don't know about this, but if you enable the restrictions, and again, that involves passcode, you can set your own, you can do things like turn off Safari. So that means they can't go on the web, okay? They can't go search on the web. You can turn off installing apps, meaning they can't install an app on their phone, okay? This is a really particularly important one. In-app purchases, okay? If any of your kids have ever played a game where they can accidentally like buy a gazillion coins, you've heard about in like the UK, someone spent like $33,000 doing this and Apple had to refund them the money. That's just important to know about. So that's under restrictions. So those are some things that just make you a little bit more comfortable with the iPad as a tool for you, okay? I'm just going to go through a couple other examples, and then I want to leave a little time for questions because I'm supposed to stop about 8:30, and I'm interested in showing you some things for older kids as well, okay? And also at home. How many of you are assigning your kids chores? Little chores, small chores, okay? I'm big on chores. I think chores are great because they really teach kids responsibility, sequencing, executive functioning, and the social thinking of being part of a group, meaning your family and what you're supposed to contribute to the family. Sometimes it takes just a little bit more, to amplify for kids what a chore is or why they should get it done. An app like ChorePad, ChorePad has a free version or a paid version that has more features, can do things like allow you to enter in the chore and keep track of how often the chore is completed. You can set an icon for the chore. You can see I put a little plant there. And you can set up quite a sophisticated token economy within the app, meaning like every time you do this chore, you earn this many points. and you can trade these points in for these rewards. So you can set that all up within the app and show them when they cashed in their rewards, because you know our kids don't always have the best episodic memory of what actually happened, so that you can use an app like that. So it just gives you some structure for kind of, you know, working on this, starting with one chore and helping them see it and keep track of time, which is a key, you know, executive functioning skill, and understanding what happens on different days. So ChorePad is one that I mentioned there, and you can get that for free, and then if you really like it, you can get the full version, which offers a few pieces more, okay? Now, I work a lot with kids with executive functioning difficulties, meaning they have trouble organizing themselves, following series of steps to get stuff done. One of my favorite speakers in the area is a woman named Sarah Ward. If you ever get the chance to have her come talk to your group or go see her, she's actually in Lincoln, Mass, but she travels all around the country and talks about executive functioning, not by, you know, showing you slide after slide of the brain and how it works, but real practical strategies that she's tested on her own family who have some executive functioning vulnerabilities, and they're really great. One of the things that she talks about is that when kids have trouble following steps, we often immediately go to a checklist or a series of steps written for them. And that can work variably because checklists can sort of overwhelm kids, and it's a lot of language to grasp, and it's also not really teaching them how to execute for themselves. Because when you think about when you have a task to do, what's the first thing that happens in your brain? You sort of flash in your brain of what that task is going to look like when it's done. Okay? When my room's all clean, oh, it's going to look like this. Okay? And that's the natural thing that happens in our brain, is we go to our nonverbal working memory first, and then we talk ourselves through it. So Sarah talks a lot about that. But apps can actually support this process for you in really easy ways. There's an app called Skitch, okay? And Skitch is like what I was talking about before, that you can use apps that create things in really simple ways. So with Skitch, I'm going to open up Skitch. Skitch is free. Okay, and I'm going to go, when you open up Skitch, it automatically goes into your camera roll. So let's say you took a picture of your kid's room when it was all completely clean. Okay? After you cleaned it. Okay? Very IPized. All right? And using a picture like this, you can actually mark up the picture right in the app for your child to talk about what will your room look like when it's all clean. So that could involve doing this. See this little menu here? This allows you to add text, shapes, drawings, highlights, even emoticons. I'm just going to use the shapes feature up here and highlight different features. So when your room's all clean, the books are put away. Okay, and you could repeat that process for clear desk, clothes in drawers, or as many features as you want them to do, you know, piece by piece. So Skitch, now that I've done this, it exists in the app, right? But you also can tap share and save image. That saves my complete image to the camera roll. So I could print that, I could email it to myself and then print it and put it on the back of their closet door so that they can talk themselves through the process of this. Okay, Sarah demonstrates this really well with what your kid looks like when they're ready to go to school, okay? Snap a photo of them when they're all ready, and then a few days later, use Sketch to talk with them about what does it look like when you're ready to go to school? Look, oh, you have your book bag, okay? Your hair is combed, okay? And kind of adding the verbal piece of all of those things. It just gives you another way so that maybe you don't have to talk them through all the steps, so that they can start building that for themselves. So Sketch is a good one to know about there too. I really like the apps from Inspiration, okay? So Inspiration has existed for a really long time on the PC and Mac, and about a year ago they started making versions for the iPad. So they have a version for young kids called Kidspiration. They have a version for older kids called Inspiration. And what this does is helps them to plan their ideas for writing, okay? So I'll show you Kidspiration so that you can see. So we've all seen sort of graphic organizers. Kidspiration has a lot more visuals to it, like actual pictures that you can put in that support your ideas. It can be used really well to develop categorization. Okay, let's see. Snow. So if I was going to write about what I like to do in the snow, I could make a list of this in preparation for a paragraph. I like to do nothing in the snow myself, but snowmen, and then go back to my main idea and also say fort. Okay, and I actually especially like, this is a bias of mine, I like not to arrange things in webs because no paragraphs really look like a web with ideas going all over the place. But with this, you can organize it more as a list if you'd like. And I can even say, since this is my main idea here, I can tap on that and change my thing to a different shape. Oops, so now you can see my snow is a square. Okay, so it's showing the main idea. The cool things about these apps is, this is a diagram view, but if I tap up here, look, I've got an outline with text. And as kids get older, this becomes more and more important because you want them to plan their ideas and maybe not have to type it over, but just expand on that plan and do something else with it. Okay, so one of the things that the iPad can do is it can take your work in one app and move it to another app. So in this case, if I go here to my share button and I go send to app, I can send this as text to Pages, which is my word processor. And it imports it, and look, I've got my ideas right there. Okay, now that's minimal amount of ideas, but it's showing you the concept. So apps can work with each other, and kids can start one place and continue their work in another. Inspiration and Kidspiration are really good examples of that, and they even integrate well with Google Drive. Is anyone using Google Drive at home with kids? Okay, because that's another app that I want to mention that has gotten better and better. At first, when the iPad came out, it did not play well with what was then called Google Docs. Okay, but more and more schools, more and more kids are using Google Drive now, and the app has improved, you know, substantially over the last year and a half or so that you can actually use it as a word processor. And the great thing about this for kids is it takes paper out of the equation. So I have a good friend who's an assistive technology specialist in the area. Her name's Karen Janowski. She runs a practice out of Reading. But I always like to quote her because she says for some kids, paper is the disability. And I think that that's very true. So with Google Drive, they can do all their work it only ever has to hit paper at the end when it's done, and they hand it in to the teacher. So that's another resource to know about that's gotten better on the iPad. Okay, so I want to stop here and just see if there's any questions. As I said, the handout gives you much more information. Hopefully you can look up some of those apps and think about them. And this just gave you a little taste.
Before we start questions and answers, we're doing a Celtics raffle for a game in February tonight, so if anyone has not filled out their raffle ticket, hold up your hand and I'll come around and for you. So, sorry.
No problem.
So, how do we introduce these apps into the IEP process in the classroom? People talk about this technology and they immediately jump to the curse wheel or something. Very sort of limited set of technology that you get to consider. How do we expand?
If you want, I can just repeat his question. Yeah, yeah, sure.
How do we expand the conversation into apps like this?
Well, it helps if, you can ask about funding. If in some cases I'm working with some teams, not in Boston yet, but in some teams that are, willing to fund for kids the use of an iPad, or perhaps have iPads available in the school, and you can make suggestions. I've heard about this app, could it be incorporated? In the IEP process, assistive technology has to be considered, so if you're the person bringing it up, that's fine too. But just being armed with some knowledge about what's out there, you mentioned Kurzweil. Kurzweil is software that's available on PC or Mac that is a screen reader, text-to-speech, okay? It just so happens that there's a $10 version of a very similar app called Voice Dream Reader that you can get for the iPad. And it's a terrific resource because Kurzweil costs a lot more than that, and Voice Dream Reader costs $10. It also integrates with a resource that's called Bookshare. Has anyone here ever heard of Bookshare? Okay, Bookshare provides electronic versions of just about every book that's out there. And Voice Dream Reader, you can just sign into your Bookshare account and download the book, and it will read it to you. So that's a very good question. Did that sort of answer your question? Yeah, it's a conversation. Mm-hmm.
So it's Voice Dream?
Voice Dream Reader. It's actually created by a Bostonian. And he's been continuing to work on it. Some people make one app and then they move on and make another app and another app. He's really passionate about the power of text-to-speech, so he's just continuing to work on that app. So, and you can actually get a free version of that, and it pauses every 15 seconds, which isn't so bad. And then you can just hit play again. Some kids benefit from that pause time. But you can then just sign into your Bookshare account and download the books. So, for assistive technology, it's just been a great resource. People really love it. Another great example I just learned about and was trying today, it's called Prismo. It's just amazing what this device will do. If you take a piece of paper with print on it, like your handout, with Prismo, you can scan the paper. So first of all, your iPad can scan documents just like a scanner can, but Prismo actually converts the characters on the paper to text, and then we'll read it. It's like magic, okay? So you can take something that wasn't even an electronic book and convert it. That's Prizmo. It's also $9.99. And it works pretty well. Not perfectly, but that's called optical character recognition, and it's coming a long way. Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, if you think of anything that you thought of that you didn't ask, you can find me on my blog. And at SpeechTechie.com, my email address is on the blog. So if you ever have a question, please do feel free to ask. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. Sean filled in for us this evening. We had a different presentation scheduled and then needed to cancel, so we really appreciate him stepping up and providing us with some helpful information, especially on short notice. So thank you, Sean.
No problem.